internet, but it was really hairy to use. It was fine if you were a geek, if you could log onto a computer, use things like Telnet, file transfer protocol. There was no web. So I felt a desperate need to have the web. I felt I needed to use it just for my own projects. I wanted other people to have already used it for their projects. So in 1989, I proposed the web. I was working in a physics lab, so they couldn't really make it a physics project. So they had to let me do it on the side. But the result was then I could, my boss gave me the option of actually doing it as a sort of spare time project, and then it rapidly became a full-time project as the thing took off. And it was back in those days. I want to start by talking about I'm going to talk about the arc of the World Wide Web. And when it started off, it was very exciting. The people who were involved with the web and with the internet, they're finding themselves connecting to each other across the internet, being able to download software immediately from another place and install it. So things spread very quickly. Send messages to people. Well, before the web, we did have email, and we had a thing called network news, so we could send out messages to each other. So we could communicate rapidly, we could collaborate. And then as we put together the web, then this world took off in which people felt tremendously enabled. They realized that you could take a computer, which before, they'd done spreadsheets on, they'd done word processing on, but they could download the web server software onto it. They could start writing the blogs, they'd plug it into the internet, and then other people all over the world could find their blog and start reading their blog. And every now and again, every day they'd get up, they'd look, there used to be a counter. You'd have this little read hits counter on the bottom of a blog. They'd come and see, oh, more people have been reading their blogs. And the excitement that other people, random people were reading the blog, essentially made people feel that they would write, they wanted to make the blog better. They wanted more people to link to it. They were driven mainly by just being read. It was so good to know people were reading it. The kudos of being was being respected by the other people in the blogosphere. So what happened was the way that the human psychology worked and the way that technology worked, technology of making links and following links, the psychology of wanting to both write good stuff and link only to good places, meant that the people who were writing blogs back then felt that they were just part of some incredible new collaborative space. They felt very enabled. They felt as an individual, they're participating on the same level as anybody else. And as a result, they put effort into the blogs. And as a result, the blogosphere became an incredible resource. That sort of thing, the web without links became a resource even before Google. Even before Google used all those links to figure out which were the best things to show in search engine results. So back then, some people were very utopian. John Perry Barlow was famous for saying his manifesto of cyberspace. He said, we will just communicate over this cyberspace. We will be able to get on better. Internationally, without borders, we will be able to build a better world without all the boring laws and countries and things like that. It was quite Lenin-esque in a way. And so what happened then, to a certain extent, that did happen. There was tremendous value judgment. Yes, we've been talking about value. Well, so what happened was value got generated. The blogs were valuable. People logging on were amazed to find what value there was on the web. And when people looked at it later on, 10 years in, the famous long tail, they looked at the most successful web company, and the interesting thing was the most successful web company was followed, when you put them in order of readership, for example, the most read website was in the lead, but closely followed by a lot. And the long tail phenomenon was that most of the value was in the tail. The most of the value was not just in the first few websites. It was not just like in the broadcast industry, you'd have a few, there'd be a few television channels, but after the first few television channels, there was no long tail. But people found on the web, this is amazing. And they found from the economics of it, wow, when we connect everybody together, the value we get in the long tail is so much greater. Well, guess what? Here we are now, and people are looking at the web, and they are not talking about value. The long tail has disappeared because actually, because now you have a couple of, when you look at this distribution, the first few websites are ridiculously popular. Everybody is on Facebook, Instagram, and then very relatively few people are in the rest. And so most of the time spent actually browsing the web is not in long tail. So we don't have that phenomenon. And creative people find it boring. Also, we've had a tremendous amount of consolidation. The fact that Facebook has got now, that Amazon and Google and so on have all consolidated their markets, means, of course, if you're interested in innovation, you're talking about innovation, well, when you have just one company running the field, obviously it's never been good for innovation. It's never been good. Whether it was a monopoly of telephone suppliers, whatever it is, we all know that capitalism is a great system, but it encourages each company to try to do well. But if you do well and you beat all the others, it's boring for everybody else. It's boring for innovation, because the only innovation happens in your labs. Nobody else can compete. And there's a huge dissatisfaction now with this situation. I think across there among entrepreneurs, for example, a lot of people, even if they can't remember what it was like when we did have a long tail. Some kids have been more or less born since the long tail, but there is a lot of value missing. People are fed up with fake news. They're also fed up with when everybody's on the same social networking site, that social network site, if it makes a mistake, like it drops somebody's data, allows somebody's data to be accessed, or realizes that it's allowing people to be manipulated in the way they vote by foreign countries, or in a way that isn't democratic, then having all their eggs in one basket is a big problem. How could things be better? Well, I think, in fact, as I talk about the arc of the web, it started off being wonderfully optimistic. We've gone through a period of where people had hopes, but those hopes, to a certain extent, have been frustrated by what the web is now. But now we're coming to a point where there is a backlash against a lot of these issues. There's a backlash against privacy, the abuse of data, and there is a feeling that users need to take control again. So what can we do? Well, for the last couple of years at MIT, we've been working on a project. We call it SOLID. So it was solid.mit.edu, which completely flips the way the web works. Well, it uses the web protocols, it uses the web technology, but it says, just imagine we had a world where everybody completely controlled their own data. Not a lot of people say, I don't. That's not going to happen. All my data's in Facebook. Facebook controls it. What's going to change that? Well, okay, just imagine, never mind Facebook, never mind Google. Just imagine we started this world over here, which is separate, where we built some apps, and we make those apps so whenever you start them, they ask you where you want to store your data. And we give you a bunch of places to store your data. You can have just one. If you're a geek, you can run a server at home. You can fire up, if you're very geeky, in a cellar, you can have a whole server farm and provide storage, we call them pods, personal pods of data for your friends. You probably won't, though. You'll have one, some provided by work, some used for family, some provided by your ISP, maybe when you get your connection, they give you some storage space. So you've got these pods, we call them, and your pod, the interesting thing about a pod is you can tell any app to put the data in any pod, and once it's in the pod, you can control completely who gets access to it. That's means completely. So you're used to having these silos, so you're used to being able to possibly log on to the hospital computer on a good day and download your data and share new medical results, maybe fitness results with your doctor. Because your doctor and you are on but now with SOLID, you can, as well as sharing your medical results with your doctor and sharing your pictures with your cousin, if you have a picture of your knee, you can share it with your doctor. And hey, because it's solid, you can share anything with anything. You can share your medical results with your cousin. You can share anything with anything. You can share things according to where you really need to do it. You don't have, so one of the frustrations that sort of led to Solid getting designed was the people sitting there having put their photos in Flickr and having built up a wonderful set of friends on Facebook and having built up a wonderful set of colleagues separately on LinkedIn. But they're sitting on Flickr and you're thinking, I just want to share this photo with my friends on Facebook, and at the same time, that same photo with colleagues on LinkedIn, and I can't, I'm blocked. And in fact, not a lot of people sort of realize, a lot of people just thought, kids nowadays, they think that's how it is. Well, just get all your colleagues to go to Facebook. You've got to leave LinkedIn. It's or you deal with being in two silos. And then you have to put all your pictures in both LinkedIn and Facebook. Basically, that sort of frustration, people get over. They do it typically by only being on one social net. But when you imagine a world where actually now they're using an app, so in the Solid world, then your friends, wherever it is, whichever site has allowed you to put together your group of friends, that group is a first-class object in Solid. That group can be addressed, it's got a URL, and the group of, wherever you've got your group of colleagues, that's got a URL too. Each of these things are their things on the web. And a first-class object anybody can. So I can give access. I can take any photo on whatever pod it's on, and I'm going to say that group have access to it, and that group have access to it, and I have access to sort of these people. And that's just how Solid works. So we have been designing that stuff. We had for a couple of years. We had funding to do it as a research project to try to get it to the point where it should be a startup. In fact, we talked to MasterCard Labs about whether they fund it as a startup, and they said no, not really. It needs a bit of work. It needs a couple of years in the lab. So would you? Could you fund? How about funding the work in the lab? They said okay. So they gave us. They funded the lab at MIT, and now. Meanwhile, we talked to Glasswing, which is a new VC, Redecentralizing. Redena was interesting among these VCs. When we talked to a lot of VCs about this, they'd say, there's a new world. They'd have difficulty wrapping their head around it. They typically say, so what's the killer app for this? And you say, no, you don't understand. This is a whole new world, right? Whole new world in which everybody owns their own data, and all of the data is on it, and all of the data can be shared with anybody, and all of the apps use it. So it's not about which is the killer app. Okay, what was the killer app for the web? If you can go back, so what was the killer app for the web anyway? It all depends who you are. Some people thought, oh yeah, the killer app for the web was, whatever it was that they happened to discover. But in fact, the point about it was, killer apps were different for different people. Things that actually got them involved in Solid will be different. Some people will get involved in it because they're very worried about privacy. Some because they were here and they heard me talk about it. They realized that actually this is about generating lots of value. Some because they're developers and they think, if I was writing a program and I could have access to all the users' data, then I will be able to do things I can't do in any of the platforms. So that they would get all very excited about joining the new world. And Redecentralizing was not one of the people who said, well, the killer app. She said, this is really interesting. I come back in a week, or come back in a month. And we kept going back to Redecentralizing. She kept in touch with it. And so now we have, she's funded a startup in Boston called Inrupt, INRUPT, for innovation disruption. I see innovation disruption is written all over the place. So Interrupt has got the right letters clearly, interrupt.com. Anyway, it's a new startup. For me, it's exciting. I've taken a sabbatical from MIT and for lots of other duties to start it. So that's the Solid project, which is an open source project, and Interrupt. And that's what I'm excited about, and I'm hoping it's going to develop, this is going to deliver value in ways that will shock you. Thanks.
I want to keep you just two questions more, if I could keep you forever. I mean, I'm not sure on a simple stage like this, you really understand the revolution that's just been described. I mean, this is really a paradigm shift in the greatest Thomas Kuhn kind of way of thinking about things. There's a term that you've used, though, that I think makes this very clear, which is my first question, and then a second question is a little bit about application. You've described this as re-decentralizing the web. Re-decentralizing the web. Can you talk, it's a beautiful way, I think, for people to get our minds around what exactly it is that's about to be unleashed here.
Okay, re-decentralizing. It's a bit of a mouthful. Okay, so I described to you the arc of the web. The arc of the web is that it started off as being excited because it was decentralized. The excitement that people had when they wrote the first blog is because they were part of this decentralized space. They were adding value themselves, and the value of the whole thing was going up with the square of the number of people. And so, the whole point about the web, and the internet before it, okay, the internet also, decentralized space, no central point of failure, permissionless from the point of view of innovation. Nobody you have to go to ask permission. Nothing. Just, you can write your own program like I did. Write a web browser, write a web server, and connect them to the internet. So the permissionless space of the internet allowed the web, which was also decentralized space. Nobody had to come to me to ask to make a new web server. But actually, what people did with it was one or two or three of these websites, of these decentralized nodes, became completely dominant commercially, when it came to traffic and so on. And so, and that's where, and so there was a lack of value in that even though it's technically decentralized technology, it's actually centralized. So decentralizing it is now saying actually everybody should have their own website again. And so that is where that is where the value is going to come from.
So in this, and those of you who have read Thomas Kuhn, who's done this seminal tour back in the 60s about what happens when paradigms move, and the level of resistance that is always given with a paradigm switch. You've got a lot of amazingly large institutions vested in business as usual. How does this break through?
That's really interesting. I'm glad you asked, because some people do get hung up on that. But I tried. So when you have a large vested institution, when you have a lot of people, suppose you have 1 million people, you've got a little crew down here, you've got 10 people putting together a new network. They're trying to make something decentralized, something which will be viral in a new sense, something which will generate sort of n-squared benefit as the thing grows. And meanwhile, there's 1 million people on the legacy system. Well, the reasons that people get involved in the new system are not related. You have to generate a bit. You have to have a new spirit. You have to generate. Yes, you do have to generate value. If people join a decentralized version of whatever it is, they will do out of all kinds of different motivations. Some of it will be privacy. Some of it because they just love the spirit of it. Some of it because they can do things in this open world which just they can't do. They can build apps which they couldn't build before. So different people are really getting on board. As people get on board, it will go virally. It will go from 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 people. Actually, it's already going to 100,000 after we turn the servers on at the weekend. But so that will go virally because of the value in the new system. And actually, when I say there were the fact that there were 1 million people in the legacy system, that's not a function. They don't worry. Actually, good news for you. There aren't 1 million people in the legacy system. There's 1 billion people in the legacy system. It doesn't matter whether it's 1 million people or 1 billion people using the legacy system. All that matters is the dynamics of the new system. And so, it's very exciting to be in the dynamics of the new system, just saying.
Look, I'll just wrap by noting two things. One is sometimes history converges at amazing times. Never has it been a more central issue around the globe for people's pure desire to want to own their own data and to use it in a safe kind of behavioral perspective. So I really think there's a confluence here that is just unbelievable. Sir Tim is going to be speaking again today at 4:15 at the Sheikh Maktoum Hall, and we'll dig in deeper depth. But I think most importantly, I just want to thank you for being here with this amazing group and sharing this revolution afoot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.